So we're gonna talk about invasive plants, and I want this to be, it's not gonna be too botanical. It's gonna be a celebration to some degree. I want to start the conversation tonight about Orange County is perhaps the leading county in California in regards to how we're handling invasives. And Joan just nodded her head. She would know. I mean, we drive outside and we, look out the window and we see mustards and we see artichoke thistles and get, disappointed in that. But the successes are really spectacular. We're protecting a tremendous amount of habitat in Orange County. We're actually bringing habitat back. We're actually taking invaded spaces and returning them to functioning systems. And so, and it's the other thing about tonight is it's because of all of you. And if you don't think so, I'm going to try to convince you it is. And when I say you and me collectively, maybe you're not as involved, but it's because of the citizen science that's going on and a lot of the volunteer efforts and the work that you're all doing. And so I want to make sure you feel like you're contributing because you are. And the reason we have the greatest invasive plant management in California is because of a lot of the people sitting right here tonight. And you're gonna, a few of you are gonna call on when you get a chance to talk. So with that said, see if we can make this work. Oh, doing something. Oh, I gotta stop pushing your time. Can you do that?
This is the next one that you want, right? Is this what you want? This is the next one, right? Okay, great.
So we'll start here, really top level, about biodiversity. Biodiversity in the last decade or so is like a buzzword now, everybody's talking about it. But a little perspective on kind of the human component of that and about, where we sit in biodiversity on this planet. We've only been around for 2.8 million years, and the place we're standing on has been around a whole lot longer than that. And so our role is, considerably amplified. But really the thing that I sometimes like to do in these programs, especially when I'm talking to children and adult children, I like this to tell people and remind people that plants are the reason for life on this planet. Yeah. And plants are the reason for life on this planet. There isn't. It's not the rocks and it's not the air, that's a byproduct to some degree of plants. Plants are the only living thing on the planet that doesn't eat anything else. Or eat something that eats something else. You might eat a hamburger, but the cow eats grass. So plants are the food of the planet. The plant are the food of every living organism, from every worm to every whale to every emu, and every rabbit outside and every mountain lion in the canyons. The food source of all of that is a plant. Plants provide 98% of the oxygen on the planet that we need. If plants weren't on this planet, we wouldn't have an oxygen-rich environment, and therefore we have essentially no life to be on this planet. So we need to protect plants, whether those are native or otherwise, would be my preference. But that's the point. That's, plants are the reason that we exist and this planet has life on it. So unfortunately, invasive organisms are a threat to that biodiversity. And invasive, if you agree with me that plants are the most important of the living organisms on the planet, then invasive threats to plants should be one of the highest priorities that we have. We want to protect the planet and the species that are on the planet. Invasive organisms, not just invasive plants, but invasive organisms are generally considered by most authorities the second greatest threat to biodiversity on the planet. It doesn't get that much press. It gets it amongst you guys, because you guys are weird people. But, you know, the rest of the real world out there doesn't get very much press. But invasive organisms, their impact on biodiversity is profound. And it's well documented in the literature. So that's going to be our conversation tonight. All right.
Yep.
Okay. So if you're interested in this topic, then I hope that you start by learning plants. And I mean just plants. You've got to really kind of start there. You're going to know what it is you're looking at when you walk outside, what it is that you're trying to protect. And in the invasive plant world, we tend to suggest that you put some categories on those plants so that when you do walk outside into a trail or a canyon or a mountain or a beach or wherever it is, you can have some understanding of what's going on with those plants that you see. Next slide. So invasive plant managers and biologists and land managers and so on will sort of try to clump these plants that are all over out there into these categories. And this is really important and useful when you're doing invasive management. So we'll start with a category over here, native, which, you know, speaks for itself, you know that. And we're going to track that through one genus of plant called euphorbia that all grow here in Orange County, and see some of the different ways to classify different euphorbias that are growing here in Orange County. So native is just a naturally occurring one, pre-European arrival. A rare native plant is generally a plant that's given that designation by CNPS. CNPS is the authority in California, and the government agencies refer to the CNPS work for that status. So a rare plant is one that CNPS has declared rare. There's a whole criteria for that. A cultivated plant, we have lots of cultivated euphorbias that you saw at the nursery down the road here. And, you know, at garden centers and gardens, a cultivated plant is a horticultural variety, right? Generally, it's cultivated. We hope it's not in the wildlands or in the garden. A waif is a cultivated plant that an invasive plant manager would be concerned about, but they're generally plants that might move into a wildland area, but not really persist. They might see, you know, a little bit here and there. Generally don't last more than a generation, sometimes a couple, but they don't really multiply and spread. And those are waifs, and we find those in invasive plant detections, you know, reasonably often. And they're our first level of concern. Here's a plant that's moved out of its non-native origins, and it's moving into wildlands. Well, that's kind of the beginning of the invasive conversation. But if it's truly a waif, it will disappear on its own. It won't persist. A naturalized plant is kind of the next level. So a naturalized plant, I hear this all the time from people. Oh, you know, we've got this plant and it's growing, you know, on this hillside next to the HOA or whatever, you know, something like that. Well, that's a non-native plant that's naturalized. It is regenerating naturally in an uncultivated environment, but it's not necessarily an invasive plant. And there's a fair amount of those. And not that we're not concerned with those, but they're not our highest priority. They're coexisting, they're there, they're not declared invasive. The next level of concern, though, is those that are considered invasive. And in California, that's generally the declaration of the California Invasive Plant Council, which is a nonprofit 501c3, it's not a government agency, but it's the leading authority on species assessments, deciding is this plant invasive or is it just naturalized here in California? And I do some of those assessments with them. So when we talk about invasive, we're talking in that language about that group of plants, there's about 800 of those in Orange County. Or in part, yes, but I'm gonna go one step further tonight on some of this conversation and talk about that far right column, and that's an emergent invasive. And the emergent invasive arena is the area that CNPS Orange County and our committee is especially involved in. And I'll explain that a little bit more, but they're the newest of the new. Those invasives that are just, we think, showing up and might be a big problem if we don't deal with them right away. They'll turn into a much bigger issue. So those categories are important to understand that just because it's not a cultivated plant, pardon me, a native plant doesn't necessarily mean that it's invasive. And then there's one for that. Next slide. I'm going to mention this a couple, 3 times tonight, at least, maybe more than that. I really want to thank you and encourage you, and everybody sitting here tonight. A couple of things that we're the best at in California is detecting and reporting of non-native plants in our wildland areas. And that's where it starts. If we're gonna pull back time and stop the invasive intrusion and stop the inflow of these plants into our wild spaces, you gotta start with detection. And that detection also means posting. And 15 years ago or so, when iNaturalist came on the scene and got popular in California, there's those kinds of platforms that changed everything in a good way. 20 years ago, if somebody saw weed, and you're older than 20? Okay. If somebody saw weed, out on the trail, and maybe take a picture of it, maybe they wear a notebook, maybe they just put a mental note, and then, what do? Well, they're not gonna, get on the telephone, you don't even know who owns that land, who do you talk to? I mean, how do you even start? Like, you've seen this thing, that you're pretty sure shouldn't be there, and it's just a hassle. I mean, what do you do now? I won't pick on Dan for this one, but Dan, now what do? You pull out your phone, take a picture of it, you post it on California, and the world sees it. You know it's there, you know it's moved a half a mile from 2 years ago where it was, or instead of 30 of them in Orange County, there's 300 of them. We need to get going on this thing. And all that knowledge is huge. And so I want to encourage all of you to keep doing what you're doing, and that's noticing plants when you're outside, especially in wild areas, and posting them. We're looking at every one of those posts. If you're doing them on iNaturalist for California, which you should be, we check everyone, and most of them pretty pictures, and we move on. But that's where we find the new connections. That's how we know what to go after and where to probably work. So there you go. Next slide, please. So just what I just said, I'm going to do this again. Caleb, where are you? Raise your hand. Caleb Martinez back there somewhere. You're okay. I'm going to walk in. But anyway, several of us are monitoring your observations basically every day. If you're posting to iNaturalist or your California, I'm looking at it. So don't make any mistakes.
We know that was already.
Observations in iNaturalist, and we're kind of scrolling through this, as best as we can, but just checking to see, okay, some that, we need to take some action on. There's, some people sitting here today. Joan is right there. She's doesn't like to be recognized, so I won't look her direction. But we'll recognize some other names over here. Here's Caleb with Irvine Ranch Water District. Does a lot of incredible detections. James Bailey, a lot of people James, one of the best botanists in Orange County. But most of these people, there's Bob's right over here. I won't look at him either. So these are just people, like they're just I just named 3 of them. They're just people sitting here tonight that are documenting things, and that's huge. It's a tool we didn't have 15 years ago that we're exploiting today all over the state. I'm working on new software right now for California that we're trying to get funded. We can get some money to make this detection even more powerful through California. So we'll see how that goes. Next. So this is just a list that I put together. I've been really actively involved in invasives for about 12 years, and more casually longer than that. But particularly heavy for the last 12 or so years. So I went through and kind of just logged some of the more significant early detections in Orange County. This is not meant to be one of the worst invasives in Orange County. Those have already, they're not on this list. These are the new ones. And hopefully a lot of these are plants you won't recognize because they're not very common. That's the point. But these are early detections, first or second or third detections, something like that, of various different things that we think are invasive or potentially invasive in Orange County. Those are the dates of the detections. But more importantly, what I'm trying to point out is those detections aren't made by professional botanists who are, on the clock, out there walking trails with their, to detect new invasive plants. Occasionally we get those too, Yahoo, those are great, but they're mostly from the thousands of people who are out there just enjoying nature and coming to CNPS Orange County meetings and learning, about reporting and detecting and posting. So, there you go. Go one more slide. Hopefully it'll work. Look at that. It worked. So if you kind of look at the names of them so on over there, 80% of those detections of the newest and some of the worst potential invasives in Orange County are detected by just what we'll call citizen scientists. You as citizen scientists. They're just people who are out spotting and detecting and reporting. And so that's huge. And INET and California are part of that for making a platform for you to use. So congratulations to all those people. If your name is over there on the right hand side, thank you, thank you, thank you. If your name didn't make it, you probably other, it could have been up there, but I just didn't have a number. Next. If you can get this to work, go ahead.
It might be.
I probably did something wrong. So here's my second or third time to say it worked. Technology is not my friend. Okay.
It was already on. I don't know. Sometimes you have to click in the window to make it go. So
Post your observations when you see things. If you don't know what they are, post them anyway, and we'll figure it out. Hopefully, if you take good pictures. Now just do the up button.
the down. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So let's let you. I think that's good. It's Upper Newport Bay. So my slide here is called priority sites. And there's a lease, and Steve Buster that Newport Bay somewhere. And but my point here is, yeah, mustard, we hate it, and it's, there, and to some degree, you have to kind of tolerate it. It would be great if we had $1 billion and we could go out and, pull every mustard plant in Orange County for the next 20 years and exhaust the seed bank and rid of mustard. That ain't gonna happen. So we need to prioritize. We need to make sure that our efforts, our human time and our money time is used in the most productive way. And I really stress this with new people who are just getting interested in invasive plant management. They want to volunteer and go, pull, get the Girl Scout group together and, go out there and, go behind the school and pull a field of mustard. And I guess they're teaching them, and it's not so bad, but not much is really going to change by doing that. And I don't mean that we should accept mustard and let go, but it's not the priority. That is left alone. And we'll manage it and we'll restore some of that. We can take back some of that habitat and put it back to wild function. But from a detection standpoint, George is left alone. So we do a lot of prioritizing in our chapter. That's that the Emergent program is sort of built on, is what are the most important priorities? Where should we put our energy? And where should we suggest the domain managers put some of their energy? So we spend some energy on prioritizations, monitoring. We help with monitoring out in the field. We help with that monitoring. We post, that's data sharing. And we do a lot of education. That's what I'm doing tonight. And we communicate. We're back and forth with the land managers and the agencies and so on, communicating new discoveries or management that needs to be done or things like that. The main focus of our effort for the past 12 years, and I'll go back to the 12 years ago. Some of you have been around for a while, know Dr. Jutta Berger. Jutta Berger is now the Director of Science for California Invasive Plant Council up in LA. She's a big shot now. I went to work up there. He's old. But she was a part of our chapter, and she and I initiated the invasive plant program here in the county. And it was really her knowledge and expertise that had more to do with it. But she identified that Orange County as a whole, there's something missing in Orange County. And it's the newest plants. And we had conversations about, well, what can CNPS do that's really meaningful in the invasive plant world? And we were pretty convinced that what we should be doing is what we've been doing now for the past 12 years, and that's working on the dunes. We're the plant experts. We don't need an expert to go pull the mustard. There's folks that can do that, but we're the plant nerds out there, and we're the ones that are going to figure out that's not supposed to be true, and we're more likely to do something about it. So we put together the Emergent Invasive Plant Program. It's been 12 years now. And the emergent plant is a plant that's specifically new to a region. It may not be new in California, it might be up in the Bay Area, but it hasn't invaded Southern California yet, say, for instance. So it's a plant new to the area, a non-native plant, new to the region. And there's very few populations. It's very small footprint still. There may just be a few detections, maybe just one detection in some cases. Maybe just a little patch over here on hillside in Laguna Canyon or something. And it's at the point where it still potentially can be extirpated. It's not that far up the invasion curve yet. And it's still at a point where with the right management and the right attention, maybe we can get rid of it. and have it not in account. And well, but they also, I skipped that, they also need to be invasive. So as opposed to a way for something that's just short-term naturalized, it needs to have the potential to cause ecological disruption. It's gonna cloud out native plants, it's gonna interfere with fire regimes or do something ecologically that's disruptive and not desirable for the environment. And it can be potentially extirpated. So that's the focus of the Emergent Invasive Plant Program. It is unique in California. I don't think there's another program quite like it anywhere in the state. And that's part of the reason why, a little bit of the reason why Orange County was such a leader. So there you go. And I keep, well, other than me, I keep trying to point out names of people that are some in the audience and some that couldn't join us. But, you know, they're the heroes of this. They're the ones that found the first one and did something about it and brought it to the attention of the other people. And now we're working on it. So what's an emergent plant in the big scope of things? There's somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 plants growing somewhere in Orange County. It's hard to say. That's ornamental plants, that's garden plants, that's wild plants, it's weeds, it's everything. Somewhere around 38,000 or something are non-native. I don't really care about that. Well, I care about it, you know. Then there are the non-native plants that move into open spaces, the wildlands. That's now we're getting a little more interested. Now we care about those. We don't care about the snapdragons and various plants that stay in gardens. Then there are the naturalized ones. You weed out the wastes and kind of the one-timers that seed once in a while but don't persist. Now we're a little more serious, a little more concerned. Those are non-native plants that are naturalized, they're regenerating, they're populating, they're expanding potentially the footprint. And then there's the invasive plants, a couple hundred of those in Orange County species. And then those are the ones that are in our emergent category right now. The emergent invasive plants in Orange County, we have 16 different. So it's a very small subset of plants. I gotta go back to that. We don't want any of those 16 in the county. One of the challenges that invasive plant management has is that trying to rally attention around one of those plants that is on a quarter of an acre in the canyon, and that's it. How do you get the resources and the attention and the money to go out and do something about that? How do you convince, well, stop shaking your head, John. You know, how do you convince the agencies or the cities or the land managers or whatever it takes that that's a big problem? Yeah, I know it's a quarter of an acre, but if we don't do something about it, it's going to turn into the next who knows what. And that's a difficult conversation for non-biology minded people to say, oh, here's some money and here's 5 years of attention to go handle it and extirpate it, get rid of it, when it's not a problem today. Yeah, but it might turn into a TV. So, I wanted to underline that. Those are minor problems today. Here's an example of a minor problem. So here's a new plant, a plant that's on our invasive list. We just added last year, I think. We added this one, this is Cinnamon Lucimoides, mustard, another one of the mustards. And I use that example because everybody knows mustards, right? They're all over the place, open the door, stuff like one. But so, you know, here's one that has one detection in Orange County. We have one detection in the county of that species. And here's one, just another one they picked randomly, which, you know, yeah, we're not gonna get rid of that one in Orange County or California. But this one, at least in Orange County, it has that little dot right there. And I pulled it out, by the way. But there's more babies around, don't worry, I'm sure. So that's what we're trying to gain attention to. That's what I'm drawing attention to, is the newest of the new, we can still do something about it, even when not everybody thinks we need to worry about it. So how do we go about it? We start this way in a very complex data-driven process. We start with a thing called candidates. We have right now 94 candidate species that we're assessing, that we assess basically every year through a process. So this is a spreadsheet that's actually way longer than this, but I just took what I could fit on the screen. And these are candidate species that might be qualified as an emergent invasive species in Orange County. We put that, each one of those candidates through an algorithm that's working behind the scenes. We score these different criteria. We give points to their reproductive capability, their ecological disruption, the number of data points that it has in Orange County, how far those data points are separated spatially, and some things like that. And then we add into it, if Cal Ipsy has done an assessment of it, that'll influence the score as well. And we also input expert opinion, local botanists and land managers and invasive plant specialists. We want their opinion too. Is this thing a big problem or not? All of that in a little more complicated explanation than that spits out a score on the final right-hand side that informs us in a very serious way as to whether that's going to be an emergent invasive in Orange County. The low score wins. So there you go. Those that are in yellow are currently emergent species in Orange County. They're part of those 16, I think. But this list goes, down to 94 different species that we're looking at. And we review this every year. A new assessment is done at the end of the year. There's new information, new detections get found. Sometimes populations get exterminated, and the species goes away. Yeah, if that's for sure, then it comes off the list. But sometimes we lose. Frequently, the reason a plant will leave our list from year to year is the horse has left the barn. We weren't able to get it quick enough, and there's too much of it. It's no longer potentially able to be exterminated in Orange County. So it doesn't mean it shouldn't be worked on. It's now a management issue rather than the potential of removing it as a species. Here is the 16, I think I left one off. No. Oh yeah, there's 16 around here. So here are the current 16 species. Those probably aren't going to mean a whole lot to all of you. But the concept, hopefully is what you got. Those are the species that are in our 2025 Emergent Invasive Priority Plant list that have very small populations, very small footprints that we believe have significant ecological impact potential, and that we're hoping that the proper resources can be used to continue surveying, to make sure the detections are complete, and then management can follow behind that so that we can remove them from the county. And again, I'm always putting dates down, the first detection in Orange County and the person who made it, and the citizen science person who deserves that acknowledgement. Certainly. Well, it's all about reporting. It's all about detecting and reporting. That's where it starts. If we don't know it's there, then it's just going to potentially expand and, you know, past the stage of being emergent. Here's a couple of new ones, not a couple of new ones, one new one, I guess. Here's one that we're monitoring right now. It's a horticultural plant. It's been around for quite a while, but it's starting to move into some wetland areas. A few occurrences were found this year, mostly in the Irvine area. So it's part of our watch list right now. We haven't declared it as an emergent invasive. We're still assessing, is it going to establish or is it just having a particularly good year? So stand by. Those are detections of this plant, mostly in the Irvine area. The Irvine Ranch Water District is doing really good work with detections right now. They've got a couple of good biologists that are really on it, and they're doing a lot of good reporting. So there's sort of a summary of some of what I've already said. We start with a list of candidate species. We go out and do a lot of field checking, and when one of you reports something, a few days later, I'm going to go there and visit it, or one of our team is going to go there and visit it, and confirm that you've identified it right and your GPS wasn't 10 miles off or something. So we're going to go out and do field data truthing. If we think it might be a candidate, then we'll give it a score on that big spreadsheet with all those different criteria and scores and see how it ranks. We include expert opinion, and then we rank the species from most emergent invasive to least. And then we publish a list every year that gets sent out to a lot of the land managers that are sitting in here, the agencies, and says, hey, these are what we think are the biggest emergent problems. Go take care of them for us. Sort of. Yeah, and then we start all over again. We train tonight. We train. We go out, monitor, detect, and then monitor what you're reporting. We do the ground truthing when you do see something new. Just saw something yesterday, I forget what it was, that I gotta go check on. That showed up on a feed, a naturalist or something. We collect herbarium samples. I brought my herbarium thing back there if you wanted to see it. So we collect samples. We usually need some genetic material to verify that that really is what we think what we're saying it is. And CDFA wants to have that in their herbarium too. So we'll send if it's a first detection or something, we'll send samples and vegetative material, dried material to CDFA or put it in the local UCI herbarium. And then we'll communicate to the land managers or whoever it is that eventually can go manage it. And then we acknowledge, and we try to acknowledge the people who are part of that process. The person who first detected it needs to get the feedback of what's happened. If you go out and see a new weed, and it's a huge problem in Australia and Chile and the Mediterranean and everywhere else, and there's the first one here, and you report it, and you put it on iNaturalist or you call me or however you report it, and you never hear another word. Everything's just crickets from that point on. You're not going to be too motivated to go out and tell your friends to do the same thing or to go do it again. So acknowledgement's really important. The heroes. That's why I'm putting their names up here as much as I can. The people who are doing this.
The quiz. It's quiz time.
Fine. Have you been? It's still one person.
No pressure, but we'll see the live answers from everybody.
Dumb votes.
Okay.
That's about everybody. If you answer, let me give you the answers as we go. If you answered with, this group right here, go to the front of the class.
Can I get a hint from the chat?
Okay, next question.
Everybody has to get this one right. It was my first slide. I know. 2 weeks. I never was a college instructor.
There's so many people. Are they voting multiple times?
I think you-
That's
I
good.
think you nailed that.
All right. All right.
Okay, this is a little harder. They're not an Orange County emergent species.
Uh-oh.
They're all daisies, by the way. They're all in the daisy family. Seems to be a lot of difference in opinion here on this one.
It was on Syrian, but it was.
Oh.
Now trust your peers and their answers.
I don't think you can you? I think once you select it says waiting for presenter. Yeah. Okay, Ron, what's the answer?
Well, you did okay. It's a little bit, it wasn't really tricky, but, so the species that's not currently an emergent invasive is the yellow star.
Mhm.
It was an emergent invasive, about 10 years ago,
Tricky.
but there's too much of it to count. We're not gonna get rid of the yellow star.
Oh,
Did that run out?
maybe it ran out of battery. Hello,
Did we get unplugged somewhere?
hello. What happened?
Well, I'll talk loud until we get this one in.
Hello.
Yeah, so the yellow star thistle is one of the worst invasives in California. 15 years ago, there wasn't very much of it in Orange County. 20 years ago, there's too much of it in Orange County. We're not gonna get here. We, white flag. We're still managing it big time, especially from the northern part of the county. But it's, yeah. It's too much of it. No, doesn't mean it's not being managed. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying it's not an emergent.
Ah. Yeah. Okay.
Next slide. Those do not occur in Orange County. Or at least we haven't found them.
I'll die. Free of heaven.
class early and let you all go home, but you failed again, so. We're gonna stay for the second part. This campus grass is not in Orange County, we are. You go around Monterey, you go along the North Coast, it's everywhere. But we haven't had any exception in Orange County, that's. Those, you slide those around or something, you put it in order.
I forget how you did it, but it worked. When I tried it out, yeah. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Or two more.
You can even beat that. Elvis ponticus, wheatgrass, sensuous large spinus, Matt Sandberg, Volutardia tuberiflora, Euphorbia terracina, or Galenia pubescens. Oh. Okay, you got it correct. So that's our newest invasive. It's the just added in December. We have a population of it in Laguna Canyon. That we're just looking at on Saturdays, matter of fact, during our field trip. Then we have one plant in Aliso, one canyon. There's one. It's been there for a couple of years, and so we'll take care of that. And this is a fill in the blank. You can write anything you want.
A word cloud. Did somebody submit an emoji? What is that? It's like a devil emoji and like a barf emoji. Yeah, there are. That's the last one, yep. Uh, oh, sorry.
Those are pictures of my ruler mostly. But 120 pictures of 120 invasives. There's lots more I could have said on the screen. I want to pause for a minute and we'll finish up. We'll talk about half a dozen different plants specifically. But give an opportunity, a couple minutes to some people that are here in the audience. When I started, I said, the reason that we're doing so well with our invasives, and we are, is because of you and things that you're doing, whether it's detection or management or outreach or all of the above. And so I'm gonna call on a couple of people, and one of the groups that I'll start with is the work that Orange County Parks is doing. OC Parks is our partner. They manage a lot of land. I don't know what it is, but it's a ton. And between the staff in the Natural Resources Department at OC Parks, and between them and the volunteers that work in coordination with OC Parks, that is a tremendously powerful synergy. With our help with detections, OC Parks work with mapping and management. And then the volunteers that come in and do the polls and do some of that detection as well. Maybe I'm gonna pick on, I'll pick on Lisa because she's not paying attention. So, well, I'll Lisa wave at us at least so we know who you are. But maybe no. Well, okay. Okay. So I'll pick on Bob Sill. If you don't know Bob Sill, I'm surprised because everybody seems to know Bob. He's one of the great volunteers, works closely with OC Parks and sometimes other places too. But he and a whole troop of people. And I want to say just a little bit about how you work with OC Parks and sort of what maybe why you do it. What you do and why you do it.
Slowness is in my backyard. And when I retired 7 years ago, I need something to do, and I love staying outside. And I walked around, picked up the trash and did things, and then I go across Joan Miller, Chuck Wright, and I've been Edward, somebody posted him anyway, and they were weeding, and I had a hated weed. It's called Tribulus terrestris. I'm sure I hated that. I'm a bike rider, and it would flatten my bicycle, and so I would take it out. And so one of the resource people at the Post, you will know Laura Cohen. She was very excited that I was taking out puncture. She said, "You need Joan Miller." And I go, and Chuck and Sherry, Sherry Hodgson. Who else is here? Who has worked with Joan? Where is she? Yeah. I don't see her. There you are. Anyone else? Anyway, we really encourage you to come out and work with this fabulous group. They are the nicest people. CNPS, we're all wonderful people, right? The leaders are really special. Anyway, it loves the wilderness parks, and in Orange County we have fabulous resources that are wilderness parks. And so we kind of adopted the Gwinnett Coast, and now Casper, Mason, sometimes Whiting, Mark Bowler, Whiting. And so there are groups of people who work with OC Parks and coordinate with contractors, that work with OC Parks, and together we take out the invasive. I've been helping for about 6 years, and I can see the difference. And there are places that have acres and acres that were solid Saharan mustard, for instance. And now I went up to Big Bend area, above Big Bend, just a couple of days ago, and I searched hard and I found 20 little plants.
Where'd you do
I told them. And this- Joan is the heart of our group. We have many good groups. And just what it takes is the love of area and persistence. And so those 6 years that I've been involved with, been persistent with the Saharan mustard up in Big Bend and now in Casper's. And we've taken up artichoke and cascadine and just a whole bunch of things. It's hard work, it's fun, and my particular favorite thing is being out in the wilderness parks and they let us go off the trail.
A lot of people say that, oh, that's so weird, because it's a lot of volunteers. If you're any volunteer with those two parks, raise your hand for a minute.
Thank
Yeah. One name that came up a couple of times during Bob's conversation was Joan Miller, and I'm not supposed to look at her in the eye. He's probably acknowledging it, but she's right there.
If you are into volunteering, a lot of our parks do have resource specialists that work volunteers to go out and also go, they go on trail, they do a lot of stuff, wonderful. But there is an organization that helps you and directs you to certain populations that we're working on. That's more maybe not so much off trail, but more lower hanging fruit. You don't want to go bumping through and down ranges. There's a lot of opportunities for that. Go outside is a great way to sign up for that for the resource specialists. But in the woods, it's Rick Tabor at Post, is Shelby Richardson at Evernew, is Emma by Evernew Court. Is Emma in the open space with Ray Crouch. So we have a few of them that you can kind of team up with and help you. Great places to help with our mustard and come to find and help for that. Really appreciate that.
Lisa Flint with OC Parks, National Resource. Okay. Well, that's so it's just, stories are always good. I think I went past them, yeah. This is where the story began for me, with this program. And on October 26th of 2011, I was botanizing along Trabuco Canyon, but near the Oso Bridge where the Royal Trabuco goes through, and going along the trail there and stumbled into that plant and took that picture. Didn't know what it was, and fussing up. Didn't know what it was. I'd never seen it before. And took some pictures and tried to figure it out and moved on with my day. And a couple of years later, we figured out what it was. And it's that guy. He's really that guy. You know, really that guy. And that was the first detection of the plant in Orange County, but I didn't know it at the time. So I tell that story because pretty good at knowing plants and botany and all of that, but I still didn't know what it was. I didn't do the right thing. I just moved on. And a couple of years later, it started becoming a weed that people started to get on the radar. And I go, wait a minute, I can look at a picture that I took, it looks vaguely familiar. And, of course, by that time, the cat was already, of course, I rebuilt the barn to some degree. And now it was too much of it out there. So, anyway, from that kind of started our emergent invasive plant program was this plant. This is one of the first ones that we worked on, and we weren't successful. It is now, it's left the program because there's too much of it. So we want to try to avoid those things from happening again. And, you know, we did a good job of reporting and detecting. Here's another plant that my friend Barbara Bosling discovered on April 1st of 2015. Just a classic example. She's birding in Upper Newport Bay, goes around the corner over in Big Canyon area, and takes a picture. That's her picture, those are mine, but that's her picture from that day, and emails it to me, and says, I don't know what this is, can you help me? And I didn't know what it was, but you know, figured after I made a mistake on the first one, I figured I better figure this out. So I figured it out, and figured out that it was Loteria tiguliflora, and that sent off a beginning shockwave. Yeah, because that's a really big major problem in California. Most of it is out in the Ansbarea Desert, but come to find out, this was the first location in California. It looks like the point of entry in Western North America was at Upper Newport Bay. It was misidentified in 1997 by another biologist as something else, and we were able to go back and uncover that whole story. So it was discovered in 1997, it was misidentified. Barbara found another patch of it and sent me a picture, and I was able to identify it. And now Upper Newport Bay, where's Elise Arena right there, has been one of the people working on it for the last few years that she's been there. And Elise, do you want to say a word about the activities of Upper Newport Bay? She's with the Newport Bay Conservancy. Oh, that's right. Now she's gone to the state now.
Yeah. It's good to see so many people out on Tuesday. Here.
Oh,
Invasive weeds, thanks to Ron probably, but who am I? Elise, I was with the Newport Bay Conservancy for a little over 4 years, and now I'm with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. We are still working on this plant here. And it kind of goes back to Ron's kind of emphasized like coordination. This plant is a partnership between a few nonprofits, a lot of volunteers, OC Parks, department, and it's only successful because people care and people are kind of in their own agency or own minds taking care of it. So we lead bi-weekly meetings and bi-weekly surveys. So if you're in and around Upper Newport Bay, come find me or Elisa and you can get involved with helping to remove this plant. So now's the season for it, and we've started our surveys. We haven't found any quite yet, but we anticipate to find them soon. Does that tell you what you want?
Anything else you want to say?
Thanks, and I think, yeah, if you're not already a volunteer involved with a local nonprofit or a group, we encourage you to go and get involved. Yeah.
And they're making major progress. We're headed toward getting rid of it out of the bay. I think
so good.
the first year we did surveys, we had like 2,400 plants or something like that, and it's just gone, you know, down every year. And hopefully another life coming. This one's a component one that's had a 8-year history, 9-year history now. So this is a plant that I detected at Huntington Central Park in Talbot Lake, the big lake there on the east side of the park. It's an aquatic plant. It's an ornamental plant that's used in pot gardens and home aquatic gardens. And somebody probably certainly, I don't have too many, and figured, oh, well, like letting the duck go at the park, well, but, you know, I'll just throw some of these in the water and, you know, give them a new life. And maybe not knowing that it's one of our worst aquatic invasives in California. So I was there on July 28th, 2016, just looking around, doing detection, what you do. You're not looking for anything, because you can't look for something you don't know that's there. So I'm just looking. And found, I think it was 7 plants floating in the water toward the edge of the water. And fished out those 7 that I could reach. Not getting too bad. And but I didn't get them all, obviously, because 2 years ago there were 100,000. It is now the largest infestation of this plant in any wildland area in California. And it's, if you've been to Huntington Central Park in the summer and you go to the Talbot Lake, well, they've been working on it the last 50 years. So they knock it back, and then it grows back, and they knock it back, and it grows back, and it's kind of in that cycle right now. But it's a solid mat across the water. You can walk across it practically. And it's just taking all the oxygen out of the water. I'm sure there's very little activity, like little life probably happening in that water anymore. And that's the reservoir for all those propagules for people to walk over to the water's edge and say, oh, these are cute, let me take one of these and throw it in my, you know, bag or whatever, and I'll drop it somewhere else tomorrow. And that's how the basics get moving now. And there's 100,000 sitting there waiting for that to happen. So the story, we're working with Galaxy, UC Riverside, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and probably more. And we're hoping that we'll have the first release of a biological agent in California sometime this summer. It's a big deal. We've gone through the permitting process. We are now permitted for that agent in California. That's the big whole process that you have to go through. And we've got some biologists at UC Riverside, some entomologists that are helping us with it. And we're hoping that we'll get the news channel out there and we'll show pictures of it, and it'll be on breaking news that this thing is a problem. And here we are releasing these little flies that are about 1.5 millimeters in size. And what we call a news story. And hopefully it will be some control. Biological agents will not eliminate the plant. But they will contain it. It will control it considerably. The agent has already been very effective in Central America and parts of Florida and the Southeast. And so we're hoping the same thing will happen here in California. Couple more. This is Parthenium. Jonathan Frank, not Jonathan, no, both are also found this one. The same person that found the plant that before back. So this is Parthenium hysterophorus. It is one of the world's huge invaders. 40 million acres in India and Australia are being invaded by it. And so we detected 2 or 3 plants in San Diego Creek Channel. And I put this one on here because we could walk to where we found the first plant. Wouldn't be a long walk. You just go over the bridge here, down the culvert there and into the sand. And there it was. It was sitting right there. I think that's it. I think that's my picture of the first plant detected. Started doing surveys. CNPS did the surveys up and down the channel. Found a couple hundred maybe over the next year or 2. Figured that was it, and we were getting them managed and taken out and so on. And then Jonathan Frank walked a little further up the creek on the other side of the 405 bridge and found the little of it. And, it was about 2 years later. And so, it's been spreading since. We're still calling it an emergent invasive, but it's getting close to where it's gonna come off the list. Because we can't get it under control. And it's now spread all the way up to the Tustin, hangar area where the Tustin Air Base used to be. It's that same channel, all the way up to that. Not continuous, but a few plants. So it's from there to the campus bridge. It doesn't go any further than the bridge when you're at campus. So like going inland, not coastal. Yeah, it's just a beast, drops tons of seed and just goes crazy. It's a short-term perennial, or annual species. So we'll see if we can get that one back under control. This is the three populations in Orange County. The oldest population is the Airport Heavens. Not too much of it, it's been under some of its control, but they're still there at the Airport Heavens. And then we have another population in San Juan Capistrano, that's sort of being managed also. And then in 2018, Dr. Peter Bowler from UC Irvine sends me, I'm somewhere, sends me an email message and says, oh, what's this plant? I just take a picture of it here. I'm in Laguna Canyon, what is this? Not one I know. And turned out to be the third infestation in Orange County of pretty nasty invasive type variants. This is a big shrubby, woody perennial plant, and where it has invaded California elsewhere, mostly up in the Santa Barbara, Ventura area, it's become a monoculture, and it goes up the hillsides. What qualities of this plant, as you can see in this picture, this is the plant here in Laguna Canyon. It doesn't start on the edges of trails and so on. It jumps right into intact habitat. And those are the worst invasive joining that to deal with another one. So we jumped right into intact. And so lo and behold, we had missed it right under our nose, right in the neck, right behind the Marine Center and dog park and stuff like that. On the hills, and some of us under control. We're going to Kansas Foundation is taking the lead on it. What are you doing for else, you know? Say something about this.
Speaker. It's gonna feedback.
Oh, okay. Go watch the stuff.
Sorry.
Chris Ford, can you say something about?
I'm Chris Ford from the Emergent Foundation. Yeah, this plant is in Laguna Canyon, as I'm saying. It's unfortunately over miles or a couple miles probably of areas, so it's been pretty difficult to manage. I was the project manager on this for a couple of years, and I'm glad to say that I passed it on to somebody else. Not only is this plant over a long distance, it's also in very steep areas with a lot of poison oak. It's a difficult project, but the person that took it over is very happy to be doing it. She loves it, so I'm happy for her. Being treated for I think 6 years now. During the pandemic, it didn't get treated for a year, got set back a little bit. And in the last couple of years, we haven't been seeing very many second year plants, so seeing some progress, and we're still being funded to treat it, so hopefully we can keep it under control.
While you're standing, I was got 3 slides there because I forgot. We've got another one in Laguna Canyon Foundation area, so talk about this.
Yep, so this is Stinking Roger. Ron found this in April 2022. Is that right? So we've been treating this for about 2 years now. It's on about 2 acres. The first, growth season, I think Ron estimated that there was 10,000 to 100,000 plants. Now with treatment, we're seeing hundreds of plants, and we're getting pretty heavy monitoring and treatment and pulling. Chambers Group and OC Parks also works on this plant, so yeah, it's the only population in all of North America. It's pretty interesting.
And a high invasive potential. If we don't get it handled, a lot of our friends in other areas are gonna look back and say, why didn't they deal with it? So, we're good. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Got my cousin down during the CNPS field trip. So, gotta connect that one. Also, first North American record, we found it, in, Hardin Canyon. Then turned out that we found another larger population in Whiting Ranch. And we're not quite sure if the two are connected, we assume they must be. But the population in Whiting Ranch has been under management for, well, since we found it in 2018. It's a small patch, less than this room, and very good chance we're gonna get with this plant. Very good, strong chance. So, not one. Joanna, I didn't give you I didn't give you a hint on this, but I wanted to acknowledge Joanna Kipper on this one a little bit. She's been working on this plant in Orange County. So this is, we went back to that, what's your worst invasive plant slide? And if I had my phone out, I would have put this one on the list. I think it's, the potential for this plant to get this in Orange County is beyond what you would imagine. It will invade in that habitat. It doesn't start on the hillsides or the roadside, it just boom, just goes. And it's phytotoxic, not phytotoxic, but it's dermal, all kinds of dermal reactions to it. If you're brushing on it, or you're a trail user and this plant starts showing up, you're gonna have challenges. It seeds like crazy, it has explosive seeds, it actually ejects the seeds a few feet away. Joanna, I don't want to embarrass you, but Joanna's been one of the land managers that have been working on this one. I believe. It looks like you are. Yeah. And she detected another colony in the woods a couple of years ago now, and been working on through there. Kind of semi-wetland area there. And then the third part of the story is Bob Sill, who we met a minute ago. When was this? About less than a year ago, last fall. Last fall, Bob's driving down the road and I don't know, he wasn't paying attention or something. He's looking at, he notices this plant going on the hillside and it doesn't figure it out. And here's Bob detected it last fall. Kind of where the Grand Canyon Road meets Lake Forest Road. Yeah. There's a couple populations right there on both sides of the road. And Bob found those and so that when I looked at it, so I think there's options. Something's wrong. I think they're going to use targeting on this. So this problem, they've got some of the players right here that can do some quotes. There's much fun for some others that we're going to talk about in detail. There's a bunch of smoke detections around the county for a few years of really highly problematic plants. Not all of these have made our emergent list, but some have and others. A couple of them are wins. This is a win. At Star Ranch, on Star Ranch, their detection, first one in Orange County. That hasn't been seen now in about 4 or 5 years, so we're calling that one a win. This one's a win. We got rid of it. One and we haven't seen it since, so close to calling that a win. This is our newest one, that we just added last year to the emergent list, and I had the quiz. And then, but I want to point out your names on some of these too. Some of you are the people that are detecting these. Thank you. There's a lot more names, agencies and people. I apologize. I thought about trying to do this because I know I'm going to leave off a whole bunch of important people that are sitting here in the audience that have been reporting and managing weeds in Orange County. If your name's on that list, I apologize. But I just want to acknowledge some of those people. They're mostly citizen scientists, but there's agency people and NGO people and so on that are doing a lot of these good things, detections and management. And those organizations, those agencies and organizations that are all partners and working together. And I kind of want to finish it on that. It's working together. And that's why Orange County is leading. We've got citizen science, we've got professional land managers, we've got contractors, we've got the research community, we've got professional botanists, and we've got CNPS, and we're all collaborating, we're all talking to each other, and we're working collaboratively. There's a weed on that side of the fence, the guy on this side of the fence is helping with it, even though it's not his problem yet. Those sorts of collaborations aren't going to happen in a lot of places, especially when you get into agencies and so on, but it's happening in Orange County. Almost my last slide. What you are doing, not what you could do, you already are doing, and just keep doing it, keep doing more. Post your observations, go out and pull the weeds, do it in a quiet way, work with the land manager, or the NGO, or the organization that's doing it. You know, if possible, well, just do it with those groups. Don't waste your time driving home tomorrow and stopping at the side of the road and pulling some things, you know, just, you know, as far as you can see it. That's not a good thing to do. But I'd rather have you want to pipe that part you can and pull the last 10 or something. Then pull the, you know, 10 out of 10 million. And talk to people. I thought that was the last topic because it's really where it starts. It's talking about this, talking about it with your friends, your family, your teachers, your bosses, your agencies and people, your government officials, your city council members, your elected people. Talk about this, whether that's in an email, whether that's in person, whether that's a petition, whatever. Invasive plants are the second largest cause of species extinction on this planet and loss of biodiversity. And the reason for life on the planet is because of plants. We mess up plants, everything else crashes. Everything is dependent on the plant. Everything eats a plant. And the oxygen that everything needs to survive is generated and created by plants. So the diversity of those plants, the health of those plants and that environment is where everything starts. And we don't want to lose that to the basis. So thank you. If you want to go with me, there you go. You can get a hold of me there. You have questions later or like what I already said. Like what I said, just go on. But thank you. That's So, do we call it, or?
You can take questions. I don't know.
I can take a question or two, so if you have a line, you can rise. If you
I'm
have
not
a
in charge.
question, yeah, we'll still work with us. Yeah.
Undocumented question around.
Question, maybe?
Oh, yeah, because the feedback they might get feedback from the speaker.
Something that hasn't been very well checked for emergent invasives. Yes. One big area that stands out in my mind, I'm a little nervous to say in front of. But I'll say it since we're all friends. How should I say this? Is sterile. It's a one of our large wildland holdings. It's fascinating, it's an amazing piece of property. And I'm talking about like the area down around Florida South on Highway 74, basically. But Castle Park and kind of environment. There's a lot of property there. And I'm scared of that things are going on there. It's not open to the public. Yeah, we were just denied access again about a month ago. And it's private. So we have not assessing it. We're not able to go out and do detection. The chapter has been good. We do have access permission at OC Parks. Thank you. So we have access protection through some permits there. To do some detection in their property. We have access permission at Cleveland National Forest. I'll be out there on Thursday. And we're going into the bird area too, which is close to normal people. So we'll be out there doing detection. That's why we're out here. And we have we're working on state parks. They're a little harder than that to crack. State parks.
That access, if someone was going to, and we go out anywhere in OC, but like you said earlier, channel your energy so they know what's needed.
Right. If you just had an afternoon and you wanted to go out and find a new weed for us. I would say, trailheads are in fairly parking areas that are surrounding, places where people visit are wellness parks and regional parks, especially the wellness parks, are high priority areas to do a lot of surveying and detection because there's a lot of traffic there, there's a lot of people, coming in and bringing things in on their shoes and their pets and things like that. So a lot of new detections start where there's a lot of people. So I would say popular trails in the wilderness parks and the other wildland parks are great places to look. Flood control channels, this is good. You ask. Flood control channels are great places to go look during the dry season. I don't know how OC Public Works feels about that, so we'll deny I said this. But walking, in a flood control channel because things get moved around and that's disturbed soil, that's what a lot of invasive want. So those are good places to go hunting and looking. So there, I would say, kind of a silly answer to your question. A great place to look is on your computer at night when you go home and you pull up my natural list. And you look at the new detections that happened this week. And that's a great place to go look for invasives, frankly, because there's 30 new, but there's 3.2 million people that live in Marsh County, and some portion of those people are out there right now. But they're out there taking pictures of all sorts of things, and they're posting them on the naturals in California. And I took it. And oh, if you're, if you're getting old and feeble like me, and you can't, climb to the top of the saddleback, or whatever, to look for these things, well, just turn the computer on and go look for what it's found. It's just sitting there in public view and hasn't been detected because they didn't know what it was. So it was just sitting there as a picture, or maybe it's identified incorrectly.
Oh, like that. Is it true that if you enter something in your little log, even that entry will like the attention of other people who know that?
Well, sort of. My initial is a community-based bit of software. So there's some crowdsourcing that goes on within California, but part behind naturals. So if you post an observation and you call it, I don't know, Starlist or something, and it's not right, or somebody thinks it's not right, they'll go away and they'll put a different identification on it. And through some algorithms, that your initial identification might be overridden by the community. If 3 or 4 people think that it's not yellow started thistle, and you're the only one that thinks it is, you're going to lose. That observation is going to get turned into what it probably is. So, yeah, everybody can participate in identifications by naturalists, and it's a really powerful approach. If you don't, you just post it, you can say it's a mustard. And that's as far as you go. And people like me and others who are monitoring these things will go in and we'll figure out what it is. If it's not important, we'll probably just pass on it because we don't have time to comment on everything. But if it's something, we'll note it.
I have an area near where I'm that's fighting with everybody like flood control or maintenance department and everything else.
All reviewed. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Not last year, I think on it.
No problem, yeah, because the paraphrase, she's found the weed, something like we live in a Lake Forest area. That's where I live. So, and can't get anybody to do anything about it. Right. There's a lot of, that's not my jurisdiction sort of thing or something. So very common problem. Very common problem. So talk to me about it, but what I'm probably going to tell you, well, first I want to know what the weed is, don't tell me what it is. But I want to know what it is. Because that's going to tell me how much energy do I want to invest in this. If it's, an artichoke thistle problem, I'm going to guide you, and probably move on. But if it's something really significant, then invest a lot of energy in it. So prioritize is the first thing I do, with yourself. And then, as far as getting to do anything, it's partly it's you or us being the squeaky wheel and stay on it. Show up at a city council meeting and take your 20 minutes on the speaker and say something. If nothing happens, come back in 3 months and do it again. Right? Get it, published in the Orange County Register. And I know it's
The thing is strange to bring up, but I've been to every Mediterranean plant in the world. And I've never heard of the California plants ever being invasive. But
this the California plants that have been made in other parts of the world.
like Cianogas,
Puntia.
Like all over the ship.
I've seen it in South Africa. In the garden.
Well, we're the most Mediterranean of the Mediterranean climates. So it's more extreme than some of the other. But it's a little harder for our plants to move off site than it is their plants to move on site. But yeah, our plants are basically on parts of the wall. But it has to come to. I'm thinking for moving to it. So, you know, the movement of the part is more one way. Thank you, that's enough. I'm still, but I'll hear everything else.
Thank you.
Thanks for talking.
Yeah. It gets better. I feel. I was just